and welcome to Confessions from a Pastor's Wife. Thank you so much for joining me. If you like the content of this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. You can also get this podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So today I want to talk to you a little bit about timing, and I'm going to give you a little life update. In one of my podcasts, I talked about the struggles of parenting, and in that podcast, I shared that a year ago, my son decided to move out, my oldest, and how much of a struggle it was for me. So I just want to say thank you to everyone who prayed over our family and into this situation. And I am very happy to say that I received a message from my son this week, and we sat down and talked, and we are definitely on the road to recovery. So I am a huge advocate for prayer. So if there's something that you need, get a whole bunch of prayer warriors to pray for you and speak into the situation and watch God do his magic. So that's a little update there for you. And then I was really struggling this week to find what God wanted me to talk about. There's a few ideas that I have rolling around, but I just feel like it's not ready yet. And I was going to put out a video that said, hey, you know what? Sorry, I don't have a podcast for you this week, but tune in next week and it'll be finished. But in that, there is something to talk about. There's something to be said about not rushing your craft. So for me, it's this podcast episode. For other people, it could be music. It could be your pastoral service. It could be painting, anything artistic, anything really. If you rush it, you might not get the full message of it. So for me, things happen to me a lot during the week where it will ignite something in me and I'll be able to talk about it. It will give me ideas and I'll pray to God about it, and he'll just direct me right in what he wants me to say about that issue. And more often than not, I have experience with it because I don't want to speak to anything that I don't have a lot of experience with. So for me, this timing is something to talk about. When you rush stuff, you miss out. So TD Jakes has this analogy all the time with the baby in the womb. If you have your baby too soon, they call it premature. And it's the same idea. If you move too quickly on an idea or an opportunity and it's not in God's timing yet, it's probably gonna have a lot of speed bumps. It's probably not gonna work out as seamlessly as if you waited for God to do it for you or to lead you down that path, right? So it's really hard because this day and age, everyone's saying that if you want something done, you got to do it yourself. If you're a type of person who's just sitting there and waiting for God and people are telling you to move, it's going to be hard to explain it to them, especially if they're not Christians and if they don't understand that, no, God directs my steps and I won't move until he tells me to, because I don't want to move too soon prematurely and encounter a lot of problems and sometimes lose that opportunity. So I just love that analogy, and I think that it is applied here. I want to speak on a topic, and it could be that I haven't had a conversation with someone yet that's going to ignite more into what I want to say for the podcast. So there is something to be said about not rushing it and keeping your tongue silent in moments where you're unsure. And my husband always says, if you don't have a peace about it, don't do it yet. And that's another thing. If you have peace in your decision, whether it's a new job, a new relationship, if there's peace involved, then you know God is with you, because he doesn't give you a spirit of fear. If you have anxiety, fear, if you're not sure, don't move. Don't do anything yet. Pray for guidance, pray for help. And when that peace comes over you, then you can take that step. But you shouldn't be rushing it. And I think that not only the world and people get into your head, the enemy will place lies in your head saying, oh, God's not focused on you. And, he's just going to forget you and you're going to be here, standing here and waiting. And he's never going to do it for you. So just go ahead and do it yourself. And again, that's going to cause something premature to happen. And so you need to take your thoughts captive, make them obedient to God, and wait for him to move you. And then for me, I'll use this example. You can be too stubborn to move. You could be, God is poking at you to move and doing everything that he can, and you're just sitting there like, no, I don't want to do it. It's outside of my comfort zone. I don't like it. The example that I was going to say is my podcast. I had this idea quite a number of years ago, and I didn't do anything about it because I was too scared. And, God was trying to move me into my purpose. So he kept telling me things through other podcasts and other people that I was talking to, and they were so excited for the podcast and when is it going to come out, and giving me all the encouragement that I needed. But it was me who needed to get out of my own way. And finally, when I decided, you know what, this year is the year I'm going to be obedient to God, everything just kind of came out, and it's been wonderful. It's been really well received. I'm so grateful for everyone for tuning in each week. And it's amazing what can happen when you're obedient and when you move when God says to move. But there again, if you're sitting there scared and, because you're insecure, sometimes you just have to suck it up and do it anyways, especially if that's what God wants you to do, if that is your purpose. Because the one thing that really stuck out to me was a friend of mine said, you could have something so important to say in your podcast that could release someone from like the burden or the bondage that they feel. You could be keeping someone's breakthrough from them by keeping this to yourself. God has given me things to say, and if I kept that all to myself, that's a little bit selfish of me, right? So if I can help one person with this podcast, then I've done my job. So, but there again, the enemy will move into your thought life there too. Like, oh no, it's comfortable here. Yeah, you're too insecure to do that. And he'll feed those insecurities. Oh, you're going to say the wrong thing because I don't think I'm a good speaker. And so I'm like, oh, I'm going to say the wrong thing. I'm going to offend somebody. I'm going to be a detriment to my husband's ministry, because we live in a small town, and I just didn't want anything negative to happen. And it was all just in my head. There's been nothing negative to happen. And if there is something negative to come of this, then we'll deal with it. But I know that God is in this and he has blessed it. And so I'm just going to keep rolling with it. So if you're experiencing some turmoil in your relationships, or if you're just unsure if you should stay or you should go, you need to pray to God about it. You need to ask him for guidance, and you need to listen. It's going to be subtle things. At least it was for me. It was, he used people. Oh, I'm so excited for your podcast. When is it coming out? I would listen to another podcast and it would be in more encouragement. I felt like it was meant for me. This other Christian podcast that I had listened to, and, God was waking me up at 3 a.m. to say, hello, can you get going on this already? And it was just, finally, I was like, okay. So you need to pay attention to those things. And again, go with the peace, because God has not given you a spirit of fear. He doesn't give you anxiety. That's all tricks of the enemy. So if you're laden with fear, when you move or when you're sitting still, you got to do the opposite and ask God for help. We're doing that right now with my son. Though he wants to come back and I'm so excited, there's a lot of variables. There's a lot of rebuilding that needs to be done, not just with me, with his siblings, with my husband, and there's a lot of things to consider, boundaries that need to be set so that everyone is safe, that no one feels left out, and that everyone can cohabitate successfully, so that we don't have this happen again, so that we don't have the hurt happen again. So it's a slow process, but we are asking God for guidance and just, helping us along the way. And I feel like that can really help someone who's struggling to navigate their own relationships. whether it be with family or your friends. So timing, you really have to pay attention to whether God wants you to move or whether he wants you to stay still. Because either way, you don't want to do anything that's going to make the blessing or the opportunity premature to the point where you don't get it, right? So I know it was a short one today, but thank you so much for joining me. Next week, I am planning on talking about authority. So hopefully, I know God will lead me to the right things to say for that. And it will be Thursday at 7 o'clock. So don't forget to tune in. Thanks so much.